Have you ever wondered how one man could orchestrate the deaths of an estimated 2 million people in just 4 short years? This chilling question brings us to the heart of one of the darkest periods in recent history. The man in question is Saloth Sar, better known by his nom de guerre Pol Pot. Born into a farming family in 1925, Pol Pot's early life gave little indication of the monstrous path he would eventually tread. His ascension to power began in the shadows, amid the turbulence of mid-20th century Cambodia. As leader of the Khmer Rouge, a radical communist group, he capitalized on the chaos of the times, steadily gathering followers and consolidating his position. His rule, however, would soon plunge Cambodia into an abyss of unimaginable suffering and death. So who was this man, Pol Pot, and how did he ascend to such a position of destructive power? Pol Pot, born Saloth Sar, was not always a tyrant. His beginnings were humble. Born in 1925 into a prosperous farming family in Kampong Tom province, Cambodia. He was a bright, curious child who enjoyed the simplicity of rural life, but his world was about to transform drastically. In his early teenage years, Saloth Sar, the boy who would become Pol Pot, was sent to the capital, Phnom Penh, to receive a better education. Here, he was introduced to the French colonial culture, which left a lasting impression on him. However, it was not the grandeur of the French lifestyle that intrigued him, but the revolutionary ideas that were brewing in the hearts of the colonized. Saloth Sar then received a scholarship to study radio electronics in Paris. It was during his time in the City of Lights that his political views began to form. He was deeply influenced by the leftist ideologies circulating among the student community. He started attending secret meetings of the French Communist Party, and it was here that his radicalization truly began. Upon his return to Cambodia in the early 50s, Saloth Sar found a country on the brink of a revolution. The seeds of communism had been sown, and he was ready to nurture them. He began to climb the ranks of the Khmer Rouge, a communist guerrilla group that was gaining momentum. His charisma and dedication to the cause quickly earned him respect within the organization. By 1963, he had assumed the pseudonym Pol Pot and had risen to the position of the party's Secretary General. His vision for a classless agrarian society resonated with many. However, beneath the surface of this utopian dream lay a dangerous ideology, one that would justify extreme measures to achieve its goals. With Pol Pot at the helm, the Khmer Rouge was set on a path that would change Cambodia forever. The stage was set for a reign of terror, the likes of which the world had rarely seen. But this was only the beginning of Pol Pot's dark journey. The year 1975 marked the start of one of the most brutal regimes in history. With Pol Pot at the helm of the Khmer Rouge, a harsh new chapter unfolded in the story of Cambodia, a chapter that was to be written in blood and tears. In the heart of Cambodia, the city of Phnom Penh, once bustling with life, was rapidly transformed into a ghost town. As the Khmer Rouge took control, they ordered an immediate evacuation of the city. The old, the young, the sick and the healthy, all were herded out of their homes with only the clothes on their backs and a promise of a return in 3 days. The 3 days turned into 4 years, and for many, forever. The regime, under the guise of creating an agrarian utopia, had a chilling plan in place. It was the beginning of the mass killings, a systematic extermination that targeted the educated, the intellectual, those with connections to foreign governments, and even those who merely wore glasses, symbolic of literacy. A ghastly cleansing of society, aimed at creating a pure peasant class, a society without commerce, without religion, without foreign influences. The brutality was unimaginable. People were forced to work in the fields from dawn to dusk, 7 days a week. Food was scarce, medicine non-existent. The punishment for even the smallest transgressions was death. The Khmer Rouge had no prisons, only killing fields. The killing was done quietly, a blow to the back of the head to save bullets. The bodies were dumped in mass graves, anonymous in death as they were in life. The regime's reign of terror was swift and merciless. It was a reign that was built on fear, on paranoia, and on the twisted ideology of a man who believed he could redesign a whole society by eradicating its past. In just a few short months, Pol Pot had transformed Cambodia into a living nightmare. A nightmare that was destined to consume nearly a quarter of its population, leaving behind a country scarred and a history stained with the darkest shades of human cruelty. Now we delve into the darkest chapter of Pol Pot's regime, the killing fields. In the verdant countryside of Cambodia, a grotesque reality unfolded under the rule of Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge regime. This reality was the killing fields, a term that has now become synonymous with the atrocities of Pol Pot's rule. The killing fields were numerous sites scattered across Cambodia, where approximately 2 million people were brutally executed and buried in mass graves. These victims, often accused of being enemies of the state, were subjected to inhuman treatment, a grim testament to the extreme lengths Pol Pot went to maintain his power. The method of execution was ghastly. To save on bullets, the Khmer Rouge often used crude tools such as hammers, axes, and spades. Even infants and children were not spared. They were killed by being swung against trees, their innocent lives snuffed out before they had even begun. As we delve deeper, we find that the killing fields were not just places of mass murder. They were also sites of immense psychological torture. The victims were made to dig their own graves before being executed, a chilling demonstration of the Khmer Rouge's complete disregard for human life. The killing fields were also a tool of terror. By making the executions public, Pol Pot instilled fear in the hearts of the Cambodian people. This fear served to suppress any potential rebellion against his rule, thereby allowing him to maintain his iron grip on the country. Despite the passage of time, the killing fields remain etched in the memory of the world. Today they serve as mass graves, silent witnesses to the unimaginable horrors that unfolded under Pol Pot's rule. Every bone unearthed, every piece of clothing discovered is a painful reminder of the lives lost, the dreams shattered, and the families torn apart. The killing fields stand as a chilling testament to the human cost of Pol Pot's rule. But even the most brutal regimes cannot last forever. As the years passed, Pol Pot's control over Cambodia started to wane. His regime, the Khmer Rouge, was becoming increasingly isolated on the international stage, and internal struggles were beginning to chip away at its unity. It was towards the end of the 1970s when Pol Pot's iron grip began to truly loosen. His relentless pursuit of a utopian agrarian society had left the country in ruins. The economy was in shambles, the population was starving, and discontent was brewing. The catalyst for the fall, however, came from outside Cambodia's borders. In December of 1978, the Vietnamese, who had been at odds with the Khmer Rouge for years, invaded Cambodia. This invasion was the beginning of the end for Pol Pot and his regime. The Vietnamese forces quickly overran the Khmer Rouge, capturing Phnom Penh in January of 1979. Pol Pot, along with other senior leaders of the Khmer Rouge, fled to the Thai border, where they would continue to fight a guerrilla war against the Vietnamese-backed government in Cambodia for the next several years. But Pol Pot's days of power were effectively over. He was placed under house arrest by his own party in 1997, following a power struggle within the Khmer Rouge. 2 years later, in April of 1999, Pol Pot died under mysterious circumstances while still under house arrest. He never faced justice for the atrocities committed under his rule. He was never tried for the crimes against humanity that took place during his reign. Despite his death, the shadow of Pol Pot's regime continued to loom over Cambodia for many years. Pol Pot's reign of terror had ended, but the scars it left on Cambodia were far from healed. The fall of Pol Pot marked the end of a dark chapter in Cambodia's history, but the legacy of his brutal regime would continue to haunt the nation for decades to come. So what is the legacy of Pol Pot and his brutal regime, one might ask? Pol Pot's reign left an indelible mark on Cambodia, a devastating imprint that lingers to this very day. The scars of his regime are etched in the hearts of survivors, their families, and the nation as a whole. These individuals carry the trauma of the past, a haunting reminder of the atrocities they witnessed and endured. The physical landscape of Cambodia is also marred, with remnants of the killing fields serving as a grim testament to the millions who lost their lives. Yet the legacy of Pol Pot is not just one of destruction and despair, but also of resilience and the pursuit of justice. The people of Cambodia continue to seek accountability for the horrors inflicted upon them. Trials and tribunals have been set up to bring those responsible to justice, a crucial step in healing the nation's wounds. While Pol Pot may be gone, his dark legacy continues to cast a shadow over Cambodia.